Hi, everyone. This is John Roy here at Dawson Knives. Just to let you know, here at Dawson Knives, we make knives and swords for the glory of God. And over 3 generations, our work has been a ministry guided by words for Him and for them. So the By Fire and Faith podcast continues its mission with the testimony from believers, and they walk us through the trials that they have been through. They walk us through the incredible stories of God helping them through some of life's most difficult hardships, and how they came out on the other side, and how much Jesus Christ was holding their hands and walking with them side by side. Today, my guest is Dennis Cook. He's a excellent, amazing uh, craftsman. He is he does all these incredible custom pieces that we have here at the Dawson shop. He's been here since the beginning. He started out in his garage, an innovator. He keeps his family together. He's one of the founding partners of this business. I have had a pleasure of working with him for over 22 years. He's definitely been my brother in the trenches, and he has an amazing testimony to share in his life. And it's been quite of a journey for him. And so I would like to introduce to you Dennis. Dennis, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, well, glad to be here.
Yeah, so Dennis, tell me a little bit about how was it growing up in Vermont? So you're not native to Arizona, where we're at right now.
No, I'm not native, but I've actually lived more in Arizona than I have in Vermont at this point. I grew up there for 20 years. With my mom and dad, I have two sisters. One's down in New York, the other one's in Miami, Florida. So we are kind of spread across the country. Uh, Quite a bit different growing up there back east than it is out here in the West. Arizona is one of those states that was so dry and kind of brown when I first moved in here that the first year I was here, I honestly hated it. I wasn't sure if I like it, but now I couldn't think of living any place else.
So what was it like growing out in Vermont? It's a lot less people than out here in Arizona.
Yeah, I came from a small town. My high school, I think we had barely 40 to 60 graduates when I graduated in 98. And that was from 6 different towns coming together to make one big giant high school. Whereas, out here we are in Prescott Valley. Prescott Valley has its own school, and we going down in the Prescott area. So, and then you got Chino. So for me, even though Prescott is still considered small town USA for Arizona, it was way bigger than anything I was used to.
So how was it like in your early years? Did you have any childhood experiences with or testimonies of God helping you through your life when you were younger?
When I was younger, looking back on at it, no, I didn't really have a relationship with God. That didn't really start with me. And two, yeah, I went to church, I did Sunday school, but it was just something that I did growing up. It wasn't like I really was into it, got much from it. Once I kind of hit high school, I got into Boy Scouts and really didn't do much with church. Looking back on it, though, I can see all this things I did and some of my stupid mistakes where, the Lord was watching over and protecting me, even though I may not realize it back then. It's happened. I mean, I got a couple, I can remember one that was out riding my bike one day with some friends, and we had just come down off this old logging road trail on this dirt road. And my friend Sean, he went out first down a ditch and popped right up on the road. And I was the second one to come right behind him. And before I could stop, he was waving his hand to stop. And I popped out 5 feet in front of a car, and they stopped dead in the road. And, the dad in the car cussed us out pretty good. And, being young kids, we retaliated a little. But, looking back on it, the Lord was watching me, and we deserved to be cussed out because we didn't check the road. We just popped down into it, not thinking anyone was going to drive on it. And there was one time growing up also where I was burning a brush pile at my summer job, threw a bunch of gasoline on it, and it was this huge brush pile. It was probably 20 by 30 feet.
Ooh.
Let the gasoline sit there for about 5 minutes, made a big long trail, a good 20 feet away from it, thinking, no, not a problem. Nope. Second I lit that match, the whole thing just exploded in front of me, and I threw my arm up in self-defense and got, second-degree burn all up my arm from my
Ooh.
elbow to my knuckle, singed my hair. This is the Lord's way of, giving you a little bit of a burn there. It's like, yeah, you do stupid mistakes, you're gonna kind of win stupid prizes. But, my mom was a nurse and, the Lord worked that out too. That when I got home, she patched me up, and within a couple of weeks, you could never tell anything happened. So when I look back on it, there was times when the Lord intervened in my life when I didn't have a personal relationship with him yet.
I think that's beautiful. Now, you said your mom's a nurse. Was that the only time that she had to use her nurse skills with you?
That was probably one of the more major ones. I got
Oh.
stitches a couple times, which just happens. And one time I had to get stitches. I was actually right. They were volunteer EMT. So one thing different about Vermont is majority of the places where I grew up was more rural. So your EMTs, your firefighters are all still volunteer. They don't get paid for what they do unless they get called out. And they were just happening to be doing inventory that day at the ambulance building right across from the hospital. I came around the corner on my bike, went down, and ended up putting a one of those golf tees into my elbow, and I could feel it reach in, hit the bone, stop, and
Oh.
rip backwards. And yep, my mom was like, "Yep, we're going to the ER." 'Cause she spent 50 years as an ER nurse, and she walked in with me dripping blood everywhere. And kind of funny when you look back on it because all the nurses is like, really? Because everyone there knew who she was. So
She's all like, "Oh, good thing you're a nurse.
yeah.
Dennis is coming back into the ER again." That's awesome. So now, how long has your family been in Vermont? I mean, is it generational, or did you guys move up there, or how
So
many generations?
no, from my dad's family, he was the ninth generation in our family born there. So
Huh.
technically, I'm a 10th generation Vermontian that we've been there that long. Our family farm has been in North Vermont, and it's been there ever since our family originally moved out there way back in the late early 1800s. And my dad was, he loves it there. He does, of course, from Vermont's very well known for its maple syrup, and he's been blessed to the land that they live on. It's only 2 acres, but he can produce anywhere from 30 to 70 gallons. Just depends on the season how it turns out. And he makes homemade maple syrup, and it's something was that was handed down from my great grandpa to my grandpa to my dad. And if I lived in Vermont, I'm sure I would be doing it now. And but Arizona doesn't really work that well for doing maple syrup.
Well, just so our listeners know, if you've never had real Vermont maple syrup, it is an incredible experience. It tastes so good. It's so different than any store bought or even Canadian maple syrup like you get at Costco. It is just so pure, so tasty, so good for you. And every year that your dad makes a batch, man, I'm standing in line for some of that maple syrup. So I have to say, our listeners can check it out. It really is next to nothing in that this country has to offer besides Vermontian maple syrup. So, um, now what brought you out here to Arizona?
After I graduated high school, I had a love for aviation, and at that time was thinking about, either the Air Force or the space program. And my guidance counselor said, well, if you want to do that, you really got to become a pilot. It's one of only two ways you're going to get into any of that career. And so I came out to Prescott, Arizona for Embry-Riddle. I was looking at that time they had the Daytona campus in Florida or the one in Prescott. And when I checked it out, like I said, I didn't, something about the Daytona just didn't feel right to me. It felt more like a party school than the Embry-Riddle one was much smaller. And, I just liked it out here when I saw that the campus compared to the Daytona campus.
So, how did your parents feel about you moving literally thousands of miles just to come to school?
Oh, they were fine with it because, like I said, my younger sister eventually next went to Miami. My older sister went to Rochester, New York for college. So I know it was probably hard on my mom when I left, but I came home on the major holidays. But it was only for a short while because I did 2 years at college out here, and then I just ended up staying in Arizona. And but through Embry-Riddle is how I met my wife Jo, Lynn Dawson, Barry's niece, and that's what started me down that long road into knife making and everything.
So, can I ask you a question? Did you ever think that you were going to be a knife maker when you were going to school at Embry Riddle?
Partway through my career at Meridian, it took a hard turn where I do have a learning disability, so dyslexia, reading, studying, stuff like that is just not my forte. And my second year, I came back. I was still trying to work on my private pilot's license, and I had an instructor. And halfway through the year, I was still struggling with some of the academic parts of the class, and he basically went to the dean and said, "This kid doesn't care. He's not going to learn," and he basically dropped me as uh, his student. And that happened right around November, and that's when I first started meeting Joe because kind of to date myself a little back then, online was something new and they had Yahoo Match, which is not even a thing anymore these days. But I had started talking with her, so I started giving me a little hope. But my older sister helped pull me through it a lot too. And I got assigned a new flight instructor. He said, well, he pulled me aside, says, basically, this is what's happening. Your instructor went to the dean, said that you just don't care. And you're basically about to be kicked out of the flight program. Says, I'm going to spend 2 weeks with you. We'll see what happens. And after that, my decision will be the final decision. Either you'll continue on with the flight program at Embry-Riddle or you will be dropped. So, and that all happened for me in November. So that was probably one of my earliest and biggest, gut punches I could have gotten. And, but when I was going through all that, that's like I said, that's when I met Lynn online. We started emailing, chatting, and it was one of those things that I get to look forward to every week or every couple of days. I would get an email and talk to her. And long story short, I did get my pilot's license through Embry-Riddle. The instructor said, no, this kid, he knows his stuff. He just needs someone that gives him more one-on-one time. And, it's kind of like the Lord. He looks at everyone and he sees that sometimes people need a little bit more help or a little extra guidance. And some people are just like, well, he's too different. I don't want to interfere, which is kind of, and it's nothing against my first instructor, but he didn't want to take the time to really dig deep and figure out what I needed for help and to me, looking back on it, I did remember my instructor did wear a cross around the neck. Again, at that time, I did not have a relationship with God at all. And I think that's also a difference that you see in Christians that sometimes they realize that there's something there that this person needs more help. And then you can't just, you know, beat them over the head with it, but you just need to teach them in a loving way, which is what that second instructor did is he just slowly walked me through the process and helped me get through my last year there at Embry-Riddle.
And that's so interesting because it takes effort, and that's the whole idea. You notice the cross, you figured he was a Christian, and he took the effort to get the most out of you. It's not going to be easy. It took a lot of his time, but he solved that problem. And so you got your pilot's license. So during that time period, you're meeting Joe or Lynn, your
Yep.
wife, and what is going on in your head? I mean, when does your relationship with Jesus Christ start to grow?
For I would say it was, it wasn't to probably maybe like the 3 to 6 month period, when we started dating. Because even though we started talking in November, we didn't actually meet for the first time in person to April. So I would say it was like that summer. I want to say it was either 2000 or 2001, and that's when because her family started introducing me to reading the Bible, having open discussions about the Bible. Even though I grew up in a family that went to church on all the weekends, my mom and dad still go to church every weekend. Well, we never had the at-home discussions at all. Church was just something that it stayed at the church building. It didn't follow us home. Whereas with Lid's family, it was different. They would discuss the Bible, have Bible studies, pray together. It was just that was my slow walk into learning who God really was and starting to have a slow. And I say slow because it took me many years to get past the previous 22 years of my life to realize, and as it says in the Bible, be able to surrender yourself to God and to his teachings and to Jesus Christ. And it's not something that some people they can just like flicking a switch. It's done. You know, I can be stubborn at times and it took a little bit of time, but Jesus is always there and he never turns his back on us. Even when we do stupid things, we fall away. And You know, even now that I'm older, we have family members have fallen away, but we've seen them turn and come back, and
Amen.
he's always there with the door wide open waiting for us.
Yeah, and just the time frame, I think is really interesting because here you are looking to be a pilot, and you're talking 2000, 2001, and we all know what happened on that sad, tragic day of 9/11. There wasn't a lot of hiring for pilots after that.
No, I mean, Embry-Riddle, what they were telling us is that, pretty much once you graduate, you're almost guaranteed a job somewhere. And unfortunately, yes, after 9/11, the industry standard changed. They wanted older pilots. They were actually looking for more military pilots, and a lot of people who had retired got hired back on because they wanted people with more seniority and just more training and more experience. And at that time, I've always loved doing stuff with my hands, and when I was starting to kind of realize that I love flying, and I don't mean any disrespect if there was anyone out there who's an airline pilot, but I just couldn't do it because I look at it as I would basically be a bus driver with wings. And I love creating things with my hands. And my guidance counselor at Embry Riddle said, Your tests show that you either be good at a gunsmith or construction," which I do. I love doing my own home projects, building. I still a dream someday to build my own house. But along with gunsmithing, of course, knife making is almost hand in hand. And that's again, all at the same time when I met Lynn and her family. And it was probably about 3 months into our relationship before I ever knew that they actually made knives because, it's not just like you take anyone in your house, like, hey, come check out our little factory we have in our backyard, basically.
Yeah, so what did you think about that when you found out that they made knives?
Oh, I thought it was really cool. I mean, like I said, I love creating things. And then I slowly started, dabbling in it myself here and there. I would go over and, of course, my wife, Jill, started teaching me, but then I also was great because I got to work with Barry Dawson, which was one of the founding fathers of Dawson Knives. And I worked for him for many years. And yes, I've been at this almost 25 years now, but I'm still learning stuff. And, even Barry, we'll have conversations and we're still learning different techniques and new techniques that he's been doing way longer than I have, probably closer to almost 50 years now. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm still learning every day." And that's the difference too, is you just can't say, "Well, I know everything," and turn a blind eye to it. It's like when you learn about God, you can read the Bible one time, 100 times. Each time you're going to learn and get something new out of it.
I think it's amazing how God just redirected your whole life. I mean, he moved you out from Vermont. I mean, that's not a small move. Like I said, it's over 1,000 miles away. And then he gets you to Arizona. You're going to be a pilot. He sets it up afterwards, how he went ahead and took you from Vermont, which is over 1,000 miles away, brought you to Arizona. You were going to be a pilot. And in being a pilot, you God put some challenges in your life right there. And in those challenges, you meet your future wife. Your future wife's family makes knives, and she herself made knives. And God sets you up so when 9/11 does happen, you're not stuck with just this license that you paid a lot of money for that you couldn't use, but he gave you another path in a path that you enjoy more, just working with your hands. And so tell me about your journey with Dawson Knives.
Like, uh, when I first met Joe and her family, for the first 2 years, I actually worked for a fire safety company, and I did that. And, that I knew it wasn't anything I wanted to do long term. I had like I said, I had dabbled with her a few times out in the garage, and we had a garage at our house, and we were slowly building up into a shop for her to work out of. I went to the BACA show, which was the Bay Area Knife Collectors in San Francisco. And after doing that show that weekend, we had discussed it. I came home and I called up my place of employment and said, "Hey, I'm giving you guys my notice. I'm going to be leaving." And from that day forward, I started slowly making knives. And then, when I first
That's a
started
big
making
commitment.
knives,
I mean,
yeah,
you
and
left
it,
your job to do something that you had no guarantee where the paycheck's coming.
No, because back then we traveled to different gun shows throughout the country. You were traveling every weekend hoping to sell some product and everything. The internet was still very new and it wasn't a big thing for doing online sales back then. And I started, I had only 10 models I started making, and we slowly made our own company. We called it Lynn Cook Knives. And it was great because until we had Sarah, our first daughter, we were always out there working in the garage together, traveling, doing shows. Once Joe got pregnant, she stopped doing shows, and I just kind of took the reins from there and started just doing show after show. And things progressed throughout all the years. Our shop slowly got bigger at our house. We put a couple of outbuildings on, kept trying to make room. And then it was like in early 2000, right before Benjamin was born, my youngest son, is when we moved into our first big building with Dawson Knives off of Florentine. And we went from our garages to 4,000 square feet. And then, here we are. We were there like 5, 6 years. And now for 3 years now, we've been in our new facility here out in Prescott.
Well, that's an amazing journey. God has been so good to us. I can definitely tell you that. I want to know during that journey and in your own life, what was the biggest trial that you had to face that really brought you to a personal relationship with Jesus Christ?
I think both me and Joe, there's been lots of them for sure. But one of the biggest ones, we have 4 kids. My 2 oldest are girls, my 2 youngest are boys. William, our middle child, he's special needs. He has a very rare genetic disorder. It's basically a genetic deletion. It's called Smith-Magenis syndrome, along with autism. One of these side effects can be brought on by Smith-Magenis is a high number of them have scoliosis. Some are little, some are, big curves. William ended up having a 90-degree curve and needed a spinal surgery, which for a nonverbal autistic child who can't talk, who can't communicate, it's hard to want to take that large step and know that, yes, you need to go in for a back surgery because you never know how they're going to react, and especially with a child who can't tell you when they're in pain. And, going through back surgery, anyone who's been through it or knows someone who has, it's no small joke. People say it's anywhere from a 1 month to a 3 month recovery time. And during that time period, we really had to lean on the Lord more than anything because we were going through doors that we did not know what was going to happen on the other side. William had had a few minor surgeries that he needed earlier, and every time he came out from anesthesia, it was horrible. He would just freak out and everything, and that's one thing. You can't have someone who starts to flail around, trying to just rip himself out of the bed, get out of restraints, pull stuff out of his arms and IVs. That was our biggest fear is, Lord, how are we going to do this if he's having back surgery because he can't move after it? And, looking back on it, we could see all the little blessings where the Lord worked it out. I mean, we had friends that their daughter had gone through it. She was on high pain meds for a month afterwards. And then she went on to like just Tylenol and Advil. One of the pain meds they do give patients with back surgery is oxycodone.
No.
William was a trooper. I mean, we have stairs at the house that make you have to walk stairs, and they only require you to go up 3 stairs before okay, we can check you out of the hospital. William tried to do the whole flight of stairs, and the nurse and I had to restrain him and stop. Like, no, turn around, go back down. You're doing fine. And when we got home, we only did Tylenol and Advil for him. And after 2 weeks, he took no pain medicines. We just see God's hand in that too. That this small little boy has such a high pain tolerance that going through a major back surgery like that at only at age 10 and having spinal infusion, I mean, all the stories we heard of how other people have gone through it, there's only one reason why he turned out the way he did, and that's because the Lord had his hand on him the whole time. And even during that surgery, his gut went to sleep because of all the sedatives they put on you for going through back surgery. So the side effect of that was his gut went to sleep and he could not evacuate anything. He could pee, but he was getting backed up. He wasn't eating. He kept getting weaker and weaker. And they have to put a PICC line in. And for anyone who knows what that is, it goes up through your arm and all the way down almost to one of your main arteries so it can feed your body. And you have to lay perfectly still. And they said, "We're probably gonna have to put him to sleep," and if they had to put him to sleep again, I mean, only the Lord knows how much longer we would've been stuck in that hospital because he it would have put his gut even more to sleep than it already is trying from the first time with the surgery, and we were possibly facing another 2 or 3 week stay in the hospital. And there was a young lady there, a student aide that was helping us. She was from GCU University. She was a Christian aide. And before he went into surgery, it was, we were talking about our faith with her a little bit, and she gave us some of her stories and testimonies. And we asked her, "Well, do you mind praying with us over William before he goes to see the doctor?" And we all held hands over William and prayed.
Wow.
She, the doctor said yes, she could come in because she's a special aide there to help distract him. She went in with William, and during the surgery, they said, or going in for this the pick, they half expected they were gonna just knock him out and give him anesthesia, because no one with special needs or autism had ever been able to have the pick put in. But our doctor, personal doctor, stressed to him, do everything you can before you put him under again, because we don't know what it could do to his gut. And with her help, and of course, the Lord watching over him, she distracted him the entire time they put the pick line in, and 30 minutes later, he was back out with us, and he
Man,
started
man.
finally getting the nutrition he needed. And like I said, um, what could have been a really long, extensive stay in the hospital, the Lord worked it out that we were sent home in 8 days.
No, that's hard. That's really tough. And how was that on your wife?
It it was definitely really hard on Joe. I'm a stress eater, so there's a few days when we were going through all that. I would go down and eat. She didn't eat for 2 days because she was stressed out. But and um, the timing is all off of me. I don't remember, but I think it was like just after that surgery. Also, you, Vi, and Nell came down, and this is also right after COVID. So he did surgery in 2021, leading up to a week, which was also stressful for us. It was only allowed one parent in the room at a time. It's like, how are we going to handle being in the Phoenix Children's Hospital, and only one could be in there helping? The Friday before his surgery, they released that restriction to where two parents could stay with him, and they would finally allow guests to come in. So again, when you look back on it, you can see how the Lord worked all those fears that we had, all those stresses that we did not want to go through, because our friends that had gone through it earlier that year, they had to do shifts, one parent in, one parent out. They wouldn't allow you more than one on the floor at a time. And he made it to where you guys could come and visit, give us a little bit of comfort and relief, and just fellow Christians to pray with and pray over William while he was still there in the hospital. And, that we could both stay in the room and just be with him that whole time, having each other there as to one, comfort William, but then just comfort each other, made it a lot nicer. And the Lord really just gave us some of the best nurses we could have dealt with. There's a couple, first 2 nights we came out of the ICU with him. Normally they're there 6 hours. They kept William there for over 24 hours because they slowly brought him out from anesthesia based on some of his bad experience before. And we were just, both of us were on almost 2 days with no sleep. And this nurse, who still had other patients on that floor that night, came in and said, "Hey, I'm the head nurse for the night floor, but you guys go sleep. I'm just going to stay with William." And she stayed with him for 6 hours all throughout the night, and just asked and called in other nurses to take care of the rest of the shift, just so we could sleep, and then so she could watch over William for the entire night.
Yeah, I remember being there and W- William hadn't been able to have a bowel movement. I remember
Yeah.
all of us together as a family praying over William. And then a little while later, he started to have a bowel movement. I'd never been so happy to see someone
Yeah.
take a poop in my life. And I just remember how relieved you felt. And as time went on, he got better and better and better. And then the Lord working out the pick situation because his bowels started to get better and I didn't want to go down. And I just couldn't believe that we were even able to visit you, like you were saying. Up until that time, nobody was able to come.
No, they
Now,
wouldn't allow
what
anyone
was the
in.
name of the hospital that
So
that
that
you guys were at?
we went through Phoenix Children's Hospital, which, like I said, every time we've been down there, it's been a great experience. For me personally, I would highly recommend that hospital to anyone. The staff we had, I mean, we really had almost little to no issues with anyone there. Um, and they really do seem like the nurses that they hire really truly care about the kids, and they really go out of their way to try to help people just get in and get out of there as quick as possible because they don't want you to stay there. And even our doctor, they had nutritionists come in after the pick line had been in a couple of days. Yeah, it's looking good, but they were going to recommend that we stay another week. And when we heard that on a Friday morning, both me and my wife's heart sunk because like, another week we're going to have to stay here. But then his main doctor came in, not the one that did the surgery, but the one that was assigned to us for the day, Dr. Karen Walker. She was awesome. We told her our concerns. She says, well, he's doing good. He's got a little bit of appetite. I'd like to see more, but he's like, you guys know him better than we do. It says, I think we're going to let you go home today and, just watch over him. She says, I says, you guys know him better than we do. He's nonverbal and everything. He's like, you'll know that something's wrong. You'll immediately bring him back. And we were just so grateful that by 12 o'clock that day, we were out of there on our way home and just William seeing his sisters, his grandparents were out visiting, watching the kids while we were gone. And it's true. When you see someone who has a good spirit and the Lord working in them, and when we found out later on, doctors can't always divulge everything, but she did let us know she was a Christian lady herself too. Sometimes just stepping back and letting the Lord's people lead the way, being around people that love you and care you, just like when you're around other Christian family members or members at your church, you feel the light and the love that they have with the Lord works through them. And sometimes people just forget that you have to step back and let that light shine through. And for William, that was as soon as he got home, he was doing 10 times better. He started eating pizza right away. And like I said, out of anyone that we've talked to, no one can believe that we had him off any pain meds in only 2 weeks.
That's remarkable. And you're talking about, Advil, Tylenol. You're not talking about oxycodone or any of that other
No,
stuff.
we
So
never
just
used
lights.
any of what they sent with us. He was just fine with Tylenol and Advil, and we were expecting, it to be a lot harder and a lot more harsher drugs, but this little kid took it like a trooper and just Advil and Tylenol, and he was fine.
This whole thing is an incredible testimony of how much God listens to our prayers. I mean, just the fact that William didn't have an episode coming out of anesthesia. Just in fact that God was able to get him to use the bathroom again. Just the fact that God was able to put a pick line in him without anesthesia. You coming home early, him only being on Tylenol and Advil, and all the people that he put around you guys just for that moment. Just the whole COVID thing, opening that up so your family can be there, so you and your wife could be there. How God just shows up in a big way the moment we invite him in,
Yeah.
and how he just changes a scary situation, and one that could go wrong really quickly, into an amazing testimony of how awesome our God is.
Yeah, I mean, even when you're going through some of your darkest times, you're never forgotten. Even though we may not see it, he's always there watching over us. And I mean, like I was saying earlier, when I was little, even though I didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord, I can now look back and see all the times he was there putting hands over and protecting me. And yeah, I was naive and didn't know it back then, but he's always there watching over everyone. He's with you from the day you're born to the day you die. Some people just unfortunately do decide to never accept him, but he doesn't. He's never left any of those people's side. He's always there to watch over them.
Amen. Well, would you like to pray with me?
Yes.
All right. Our beloved Jesus, we thank you so much for the beautiful testimony that Dennis shared with us, for all your amazing works and how you moved in this incredible man's life, that we are blessed to have him here at Dawson Knives, and that you may give hope to those out there that are going through a hardship. Maybe they have a family member in the hospital. Maybe they have an autistic child or special needs child that they need help with, and to know that God is there. God is with you, and He loves you. He's going to work all things for your good. And we praise you, Lord. We praise you that even in our hardest times, even when the outcome looks bleak, you show up in a big way. You work all things out better than we could even imagine. And we just praise you, Jesus, and we thank you. All glory to you, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, Dennis, for being on here. He's an incredible craftsman. And like I said, all those custom pieces that you see coming out of this shop were made by his hands. He now leads the custom department. He's been training up some young and very enthusiastic family members and soon to be family members. But we have been very grateful for all that Dennis has done, and he is my brother, and I have been so blessed to work with him for so many years and to get to do everything together, especially hunting. That's another thing. He's a big hunter. Before we get off, actually, I do want to have him share a story, a hunting story. Go ahead, Dennis. Just pick your favorite hunting story. I mean, I wouldn't do you any service if I didn't let you tell a hunting story.
Well, I mean, honestly, the latest one that just happened, my daughter Emma got drawn for her last youth elk hunt here in Arizona, and it's something that happened over the last started back on the 25th of September when my first daughter got married. One of those hurricanes would come up through the West Coast, which is unusual that we get much of a side effect in Arizona, but twice now we've been affected by it. And, for my daughter's wedding, it was supposed to rain. The Lord held back the rain. We had the ceremony. And then right after the ceremony ended and everything we needed to do outside was done, it opened up the rain, and it rained hard for 3 days. It's when, unfortunately, we had some very severe um, flooding down Globe, Arizona, and they lost some people there due to that. And that was on September 25th. And then here we are a couple of weeks later during our hunt. All week long, it said nice and sunny. And then here comes that second hurricane. And we drove up to Happy Jack, Arizona, where my daughter was hunting, and it started raining Thursday night. I mean, we had two loud thunderclaps that shook everyone out of their beds in the tent, and it woke us all up. And everyone says none of us slept that night. It was something. And Friday morning we go out, and we hadn't even been out maybe 30, 45 minutes. I think we left camp about 6:45. And by 7:30, my daughter Emma had an elk, and she had it down on the ground, and me and her left my grandpa and my youngest son Benjamin there with the elk as we went back to get my other truck that had 4-wheel drive because it was so muddy out from all the rain we had gotten from that hurricane coming through. We get up there, and it's just one of those sweet little blessings and miracles that on that Friday, it was the only time it didn't rain. The second we started to do the whole field dressing, we had 3 hours perfect. It was a little bit of sun came through. It stopped raining. We could take off all our rain gear, packed up all the meat. The second we get in the truck, start driving off the road again, it just started downpouring on us. And I'm a member of a few online elk society, one for Arizona and elk hunting groups. So many people for the youth hunt end up abandoning their camps Friday night because they were getting flooded out. I saw people post pictures where their campsite was totally flooded. The area that we picked, the Lord showed us the perfect spot, a little bit of a high ground, even though we had a river that was only a couple of yards from our tents. It never got any higher than that. The water drained away. And, you can just see that the Lord works everything out and it's His time in that. And we end up staying the whole weekend. And even though we were done hunting Friday morning at 7:30, we were able to hang out with you and your two boys on the weekend, and even seeing Eli get his first elk. And each day when they kept saying for this bad weather, the Lord just kept it. It was there, but it was north of where we were hunting. So the little area we picked we kept hitting these dry spots, no rain, and it made for a real wonderful experience. And my dad was out for this hunt, and he just turned 75 today, and he's out there doing miles in the woods with his grandchildren on my daughter's last elk hunt, and he's already saying he's going to come back out next year, Lord willing, and be there for Benjamin's first hunt.
Amen. Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty hairy, but God worked it out from beginning to
Yeah,
end, and we both were able to get really nice elk, or at least our children were, and
yeah.
praise the Lord. And your dad's pretty spry for 75. So happy birthday to your dad, and God bless you guys. You guys are an amazing family. I'm so glad that we get to do everything together, and that's a blessing to work together every day.
Yes, it is.
And so I just want to thank you so much, Dennis, for being on here. And thank you for everything that you do here and the passion and the love that you put in every piece. I know that our customers see that. And thank you all very much for checking in with me and Dennis here on By Fire and Faith. God bless you all and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.